Okay, the second half of the video, worksheet 2D, we're picking up at number 7, and we're trying to find the points of discontinuity. Now that is a way of saying holes and asymptotes. That's the umbrella statement for all of that. Now, first of all, we're wanting to factor this thing. This is going to be x plus 2, x minus 2 on top, and 3 times x minus 2 on the bottom. Now, if we're going to cancel things out, that means we're going to have a hole at x equals 2. That means the vertical asymptote, there is none. The horizontal asymptote is top heavy. It's top heavy, so there is none. And so we can note that we're going to have an x-intercept at -2. And now we are off to graph this thing. When we cancel this out, all that's left is y equals x plus 2 over 3, which you could rewrite that as 1/3 x plus 2/3. That might make it a little easier to figure that out. So we're going to go to where the graph is 2/3, which is right about there, 2/3 the way from 0 to the 1. And we're going to go like up 1 over 3, and we're going to catch that same little spot just below the line. Up 1 over 3, down 1 over 3, down 1, and over 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, in the midst of all of that, we need to show that we have a hole where 2 is, where x is 2. And otherwise, the rest of that goes on like that. We do have an x-intercept at -2. We've drawn it accurately. So that should be what that looks like. Try not to let fractions scare you, but so much. Like I said, it's the 2/3 that was the stinker there, but the 1/3, that's just up 1 over 3. That's rise over run. All right. Now let's see what we're doing with this one. We have 4x over x. X squared minus 4 is left, which means we're going to do an x plus 2, x minus 2. And at this point, we're going to have, this may be a surprise for you, but we do actually have something that cancels out, and that is the x, which means that we have a hole where x equals 0. Let's see now, vertical asymptotes. We are going to have 2 of them. X equals -2, x equals +2. As far as horizontal asymptotes, I have an x to the 1 on top. I have an x to the 3 on the bottom. It is a bottom heavy ship, which means I'm going to have an asymptote at y equals 0. And I'm looking at the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts are really not any help here. There's nothing for x-intercepts up there left. And for y-intercepts, it's like 0 over 0. Well, I guess the y-intercept of 0. Well, we've got a horizontal asymptote going on there. So let's sketch our horizontal and vertical asymptotes first. Vertical asymptotes at -2 and +2. And then y equals 0. Okay. Now, there is a hole where x equals 0. So that means that there's going to be like an open circle there. And typically, unless these things are flipped, they usually do something like this. Well, I need to change colors. They'll do something like this, and like that. And then they'll come up here and do that. Typically, they'll look like that unless they're flipped. And we don't have a negative on top, so we know it's not flipped. But that hole where x is 0 tells me that it comes up and it does a hole there, and then it goes back down again. Because when you plug in a 0 there, you get undefined. You plug in a 0 into the equation, it becomes undefined, so it's not even going to touch that. All right, number next. Here it's already factored for you. I don't have any hole. Vertical asymptote, I have x equals 2, x equals -3. Horizontal asymptote, I'm going to wind up with an x to the 1 over an x squared, which is bottom heavy, which means I'm going to have an asymptote there. I'm going to have an x-intercept at -6. I'm going to change the sign. And if I multiply this out, I get x squared plus x minus 6. So I'm going to have a y-intercept at 6 over -6, which is -1. So those are things that I need to know. Let's see now, vertical asymptote at 2 and -3. Horizontal asymptote at 0. I'm going to have an x-intercept at -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait a minute now. How can I have an x-intercept when there's an asymptote going on there? Y-intercept at -1. Y-intercept at -1, so it's going to hit there. All right. And because nothing is flipped, I'm doing kind of the same thing. That. And it tells me that it's going to come up and it's going to do this. And it will pass through y right there at -1. So that should be a rough idea of what this sketch looks like. All right, now we're getting back to straight up piecewise. So we're going to start out, this guy is in blue. -2x minus 1. So I start at -1. And I go down 2 over 1, up 2 and back 1. Let's see now, I'm going to go everywhere less than 2. So down 2 over 1. I'm going to start here. And I'm going to keep going back that way. Drawing as straight a line as I can right now. All right, and then we're going to switch over to this guy, where x is above 2. It's going to start from +4, 1, 2, 3, 4, there. And it's going to go, as a slope of -1, which means down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. And it's going to be everything above x, where x is 2. And then it's just going to go down forever in that direction. And I don't need that or that anymore. So that's what that should look like. Okay. Oh, this ought to be fun. Now, -2 raised to the x. Something that you got to keep in mind with this is that the exponent affects the 2 first, and then the negative. All right. So no matter what I plug in there, 2 to the 0, 2 to the 1, 2 to the 2, it's going to do its thing first, and then the negative comes at the very end. All right. If it were the other way around, the -2 would be in parentheses with an x on the outside. So because of that, we know that this thing is going to be flipped on. Let's start this way. Let's start with green. All right. Now, as far as this goes, x, when x is 0, that's going to be -1. When x is 2, that's going to be -4, 2, 3, 4. But here it's going to just kind of cruise. But up until 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. It would normally be taking a path like this, but it stops at 4. So it's up close to the line. It's getting close to the line. It's just hard to depict that with as much as we had to work with here. Now, from -4 to 0, it's going to be normally absolute value of x would be a v going up. But with the negative in front of it, it's a v going down. So it'd normally be doing, let's change colors here. We'll go to red. And normally it would be doing this kind of a thing right here. But the thing is that it's, first of all, going to stop here, and it's only going to go as far as here. Yeah, that's about as straight as I'll get today. So that's the middle part, is that normally it would be a V going down, but we're only interested in the part of the V that goes from -4 up to 0 with a solid circle on either end. Now, the last guy is a parabola that is probably more like that. Now, if that's the case, then we are flipping it down. It is an upside down parabola that starts at +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. But that where x is 0 is going to be an open circle. Now, normally we would come out 1, down 1, out 2, down 4, out 3, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And normally we would have a mirror on the other side, but in this case, we're only stopping where x is 0 and worrying about what is above 0. So it's going to do something like that. That should be what 11 looks like. All right, 12. I'll tell you what, let's do the easy one first. This guy should be that y is -4 to 4. Everything from 4 and up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Open circle there. And it should be doing that. All right. Now, this guy, when I look at it and I see that -4, what that -4 is telling me, first of all, is I am going right 4. I am taking that center that is usually right there at the origin, where the x-axis and the y-axis are my asymptotes, and I'm going 4 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is my center, which means that technically speaking, I am doing this. And because I didn't flip it, I would normally have a curve up here in, the far upper right, but that is being taken over by the blue. So all that I'm going to do here is I'm going to come out one dot. Well, let's one dot here. And it's going to do something like that. Because the upper part of the curve over here is completely under the domain of the blue. And so the blue's got the baton right now, not this guy. So that's what it's going to look like. Interesting graph. And number last. Oh, this is going to be such fun. All right, let's start with the green. This is basically going to be absolute value of x with a 1/2 in front. I mean, you could look at it that way. And it's everything that is under, well, let's see now, if I were to do absolute value of x, it would look like that. But if I'm going to do it half the value, that means that my y value is only going up half as fast, which means I'm actually doing this number right here. I'm going up 1/2, up 1/2 like that. Now, just to continue that, I'm supposedly picking up at -4 and keeping that pattern going and ignoring everybody else. So that's what that part would look like. It would normally come down here to the origin and then go up that way, and it would be over 2 up 1, flattening out by 1/2. Now, square root of -x. That means that instead of, let's get our color straight here. We're playing with red. Instead of doing that, he's inside with the x. That means it's going to flip across this way. So from -4 all the way to 2, we're going to have a problem here, because this thing is supposed to start here, up 1/2, up 1/1, up 2/1, 2, 3, 4, and that is an open circle. And that's what's going on there. But the problem is that by the time you get to 1, if I were to stick a 1 in there, the square root of -1 doesn't exist. So I actually have a gap in this, from 0 all the way to +2. There's a gap in this because it doesn't exist. I would even say this. I mean, you don't necessarily have to write it out, but I am explaining what's going on there. Now, absolute value of x minus 2, that's the absolute value of x, but it's moved 2 units to the right. So that means that it's going to start here, and it's not being flattened or anything like that. So under normal circumstances, it would do that, and you would do this, and it would keep going up forever that way. But because this thing starts at +2, you got that gap there, and there's not a thing we can do about it. Now, I believe that is the end of that one. So we are done with this exercise.